All right. Hey, AOF. You guys know what time it is. All right, AOF. So this is a really special episode because you guys are actually looking at my former boss. Yes, I said it. So if you guys have not seen before, or maybe the pandemic, you guys kind of like flittered off somewhere. Before I moved into my current role, I was working for an amazing startup in London with Ollie. And I have to say, like, it was the ride of my life. At that point, 𝘀𝘺𝘀, which is the company that I work for, they were transitioning from data notebooks to data canvases. And Oli, I mean, we actually did this recording 2 years ago, and it never got released. Let's be honest.
Is that long? Yeah.
Is it two?
Yeah.
No, maybe a year and a half. Yeah.
It's probably for the deleted reel that you bring out at some point. Yeah. As always, it was a very heated debate, as we always have. Yeah.
Very heated debate. So full transparency,
Passion.
We are very about passion. So one cool thing I'll say before we do our normal roundabout is me and Oli have the same birthday.
We're birthday bros.
We are the birthday bros. So it means, what that means in a scary way, which not sure will come off in this interview, is that we're very much alike, which is interesting and different, which is very cool. So anyways, all right. So without much further ado, because we have a lot to cover here, we are talking about not just high impact data teams, but the rise of data canvases. So Oli, why don't we start out first by you telling AOF something about yourself that most people do not know?
Okay, well, I can start with things maybe that people can find out. Maybe I live in the UK, just outside London. I have a wonderful wife, a patient wife, and two young boys, 5 and 7. They are lovely. They keep me grounded. My wife's a doctor, which also keeps me grounded, which is very helpful. Like, it's very hard to complain about work when you have a doctor in the household. And and she, Miko, you know her very well. You know what I mean. And I think the thing which made me news to me is I've just started a new hobby. I now do taekwondo with my little boy Theodore, and we're doing it together. So we became like white belts at the same time. And every Saturday morning we go off and spar and fight. And we're now about to become green belts, which is a kind of it's a third the way to black belt. So very, very beginner still, but we have a lot of fun together, and it's the kind of thing we do each week together. And I wouldn't do it without him, but I'm starting to really love it. I've never really done that kind of like martial arts before, and it's been a really, really cool thing. So yeah, I'm getting into the martial arts, which is a surprise to people perhaps when they hear it.
That's awesome, and I can only assume Theodore is big now. They're so adorable. I definitely miss the zooms with the kids in the back. You knew that were some of my favorite zooms when they like run across randomly. Those are some of my favorite zooms. So okay, all right. So thank you for telling us about a little bit about yourself. All right, so this one is gonna be fast and furious. Like I said, it's almost like a re-record, but I want to talk today about driving value in data teams, right? High value data teams. One of the things that's happening right now, Oli, we are post-pandemic, right? Is a lot of data leaders are being asked to do more with less. All right.
Yeah.
And so, what I'm hoping to accomplish today is you guys have what I consider to be, which is why I was part of the team, what I consider to be a data tool for forward-thinking data leaders. But because of the data canvas, which is what that is, you also have a good experience with data leaders and seeing how high impact and high value teams perform. So why don't we first start out talking about what is a high value data team? Tell you what.
Sure. I mean, there's lots and lots of different definitions of that, I guess, and you're seeing this a lot. I have a lot of privilege in my job that I speak to a lot of data leaders all the time, and you see people have very different executions of based on their business context what it really means. But there's some fundamentals to this which I think I can share and hope that's helpful to the audience. So broadly, there are kind of 4 levers of value that a data team can bring to their organization. The first one is like data quality and ingestion, like bringing all the different data sources that exist in the business into one place and making them available and accessible. That's an enabler. It's not necessarily in itself a value driver, but it's an enabler of everything else. That's a key one, obviously. The second one then is how to use data operationally in the business proposition. That could be like machine learning models in the product, like a data science function could deliver that. But obviously there's also other ways to like bring data products into the organization to enable workflows. That's a second thing which some business teams, data teams can do depending on their business context, so they have that opportunity to do that. The
Mm-hmm.
third one is then they can obviously work out how to sort of sell your data. Like that's very niche play. Not everyone can do that, but like selling data, being a marketplace for the data that you have, a niche one as well. But the fourth one, which I think is more that everyone has in common, is this idea of decision support, like the BI, the analytics space. How do we help our business understand itself? How do we understand, like, how do we drive decisions with the data? That's the thing which most teams have in common. And that's actually where I think as an industry, we have the broadest variation of what that means. We have a lot of people doing it in different ways. And that's where the variation comes, I think, more than anywhere else. And that's where the real opportunity, I think, for people to improve exists. So with that in mind, focusing on decision support, the things which I would define a high impact data team to be around is like how to do that well, like how to make sure that alongside the other drivers of value like data science and ingestion of data and consolidation, how do you actually enable great decision support for the business? And that's the conversation I'd have, is like that is where the most high impact can be seen and where I see the biggest variation.
So one of the things that I found fascinating as we were doing prep and I was going through your notes is you made a very bold statement, right? And you said that one of the things that the story of Count has led us to realize that the best analytic leaders work very differently from the rest. And I think that's really important, the word differently. So can you like dive in a little bit and tell us what is different about teams that are performing in a high value manner specifically?
Sure.
Than other teams?
Well, I think there's actually some real tenets to this which can apply, like some principles to what it means to do it well. So let me paint. The first one would be they ruthlessly focus on operational clarity. Well, that's a principle I think that you can differentiate. So let me paint the kind of the bad behavior, but that is possible. That it's very easy to fall into, the trap that you can fall into, and then what operational clarity means. So there's a really negative feedback loop that you can fall into as a data team if you're not careful, which is you have lots of dashboards. You give them to the business. The business is the number of dashboards confuses the business. They see the same metric in 8 different places. They don't know what they're looking for. They have a lack of clarity. That leads to a request for the specific information they really want, a data request, and that creates another dashboard. And then that cycle continues. You have this feedback loop where you're producing assets after assets after assets to rightly serve the business with the needs they have at the time, but overall creates this kind of real mosaic of different data dashboards, which actually gives no holistic overview of what's really going on. And that's the negative loop that you can fall into, which is not driving clarity. It's just building assets to serve the business in a very, for all good reasons, but with a real damage to the overall understanding of the business and context. And that's the thing you're got to fix. Yeah.
And one of the things I learned at Count, which was awesome. I remember we talked a lot about chart monkeys, right? And I feel like one of the things that happens with data teams is they get into this chart monkey syndrome, which is I do as I'm told, right? So I get a request, I pump up a dashboard. I pump out dashboards. Those dashboards, which are supposed to help provide clarity, actually put the users into what I call analysis paralysis, right? So because there's so many different fragments of them, no one actually gets value from them. And so the requests just keep coming and coming and coming and coming. So I love that you talk about this focus on operational clarity. Okay, what's another differentiation that you see when it comes to data teams that operate differently that are considered to be high value based on your experience at Count?
So the other thing is they focus on solving problems rather than data requests. That's the second one. So, and these things are linked, right? So if you're in a situation where you have low operational clarity, you then have to provide instantaneous clarity with the data request. You are, as you say, you're like in this analysis paralysis, you're just providing information in a cycle. You're not digging deeper into the problems. When you have operational clarity, when you understand what's really going on, what the priorities of the business are, what's really happening, you are then able to focus on the areas that need the biggest areas of need, biggest areas of operational ambiguity, or the biggest areas of opportunity. And that's the opportunity to go for, is like these data teams who work like that They are problem solvers. The analyst team
I
are
love it.
considered to be the problem solvers of the business. This is the value add work that you can do, where you're working with business stakeholders to help them understand what's really going on. You're digging in, finding solutions and challenges and opportunities that exist in the key areas of the business needs. And that's a much more, frankly, that's not only more valuable to the business, it's also much more why I think we all got into data in the first place, that we love the art of discovery. So it's also maximizing the capability of the analyst function. So that's the other thing. They turn analysts into problem solvers. Yeah.
So, okay. And I love this one because I used to, years ago, when I was teaching people about dashboards, right? Ages ago at this stage. One of the things I used to say about dashboards, which I know may not agree with, is I used to say the difference between a dashboard and report, and this was what, 10, 12 years ago, is that dashboards give answers while reports generate more questions. And I think we've obviously evolved from there, but I do like the concept of you stating that analysts should become problem solvers versus, again, going back to chart monkeys. Now, is that a paradigm shift, Ollie? Like, is that something, like, how do you drive that from a leadership perspective? Right? Because analysts are analysts and they're naturally curious and they feed off of data. Like to analysts, data is food, right? So how do you stop that on, like, you cannot feed enough data to analysts? How do you stop that drive and say, listen, we can't just keep consuming data and pushing up. We need to solve a problem. How do you drive that as a leader, AOF?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Ultimately, I think analysts love solving problems. I think they love doing investigation and finding that insight which drives real impact, real outcome in the business. I think that's what we all aspire to do. The challenge is that when you have this negative cycle of dashboard data request cycle, you're stuck in, you're solving the first problem, which is give me clarity. What is really going on? And if you're still in that situation, you need to get to a point of operational clarity, and then you have the space to breathe. You can give the business then has a need for problem solving rather than just what is going on, and you can get stuck in that first phase for a long time. It also comes back to how do you break that cycle? You break that cycle by saying no to data requests which aren't driving strategic value. You prioritize that, and you also work for, like you say, like whether you call them dashboards or reports or whatever the nomenclature is, you differentiate between, you ruthlessly remove information as much as you're building it, that you ruthlessly like minimize the amount of information required to get to operational clarity. And I think it's all about driving signal from noise, right? So one of the most important parts of the way in Count, for example, we give value is that we give you telemetry on usage of the product. So you know which assets can be removed, because you don't want to have those legacy assets which then either are very, very rarely looked at, or if they are looked at, they're confusing. They give a fragment of the picture. And then second thing, which I guess is maybe unique to our tool, which is an example of more operational clarity than just minimizing the number of dashboards, is to start producing high-level holistic reports like metric trees or process flow diagrams, which just give that overview and that real light bulb moment of clarity to the business, rather than it being across like 5 or 6 different assets.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into the data canvas, but I like your notes. I like your knowledge bomb around being ruthless about data, ruthless about low value tasks, because I think, again, people get on this treadmill, right? And they can't get off. The team's on a treadmill. It's always a new report, a new request.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening, and every data leader listening knows this, right? AOF is that you get caught up in the day-to-day, but you never actually get to the important strategic task. And so I think what Ollie is, I love the operational clarity. Maybe that's what I'll name. I
think that's actually, I've come to the view that I'm working on these concepts as I speak. So these are not fully baked, but I think that's almost like the North Star metric of a data team is clarity, operational clarity. Everything you're doing should be driving towards more clarity in a world where information is, in the data world, information is not, that we're not lacking information anymore. It was like, 20 years ago, just getting data into the hands of the business was considered the win. Now there is more data than they can possibly cope with, and therefore the role is now not just data provision, it's actually signal creation. It's like signal over noise. It is removing information and deprioritizing as much as it is building it. And I think that's the new world that we're now in. And I think particularly that's now urgent, because I believe that the role of data teams is constantly. I just keep seeing people constantly questioning what the role of data team is now in the world of AI and the world
Agree
of
100%.
And I think actually we can talk about AI as much as we want, but one of the big risks of AI is it's a productivity gain. It lets you produce things 10 times faster than before, and the risk is just going to be information noise, like 10 times more information, even
more
less
dashboards.
signals. So,
they just get created more reports.
That would not be a good outcome.
Yeah, more reports. Okay. And all right, so keeping on that trail of differentiation. So if you're just joining in AOF, first of all, please feel free to put your questions in the comments here for Ollie. We are having an in-depth discussion about high value data teams, and Ollie is digging into what he said. High value data teams, one of the things he noticed is that they have a keen focus on something he calls operational clarity. And so what we've discussed so far is what operational clarity is, which means you need to go back and listen to the recording, as well as the fact that he talked about some of the elements, such as, being rootless about focusing on signals versus noise, also making sure that you root out low value tasks. I hope I'm recapping that correctly. Is there anything else, Ollie? Am I recapping that correctly?
It's good enough. Just rewind. Don't listen to me.
Just rewind. Exactly.
Just rewind.
Is there anything else? Because we keenly focus on what's the difference between high value data teams.
The other big tenet, I think, is, and it all links together. There's obviously there's a vicious cycle and a virtuous cycle. So the goal is to get to the virtuous cycle of operational clarity leading to high impact work, leading to more operational clarity, and the vicious cycle is dashboard complexity leads to data requests, which leads to more dashboard complexity, and that's the negative cycle. The other big enabler, the thing I keep seeing, which I think is, again, can be executed different ways, but does help data teams stay focused on impact, is just measuring their own work. There's a real irony here that data teams, I used to be the same, I'll be honest. We are focused on measuring others and measuring performance, but we have very little measurement of our own work and our own time where we're spending our efforts, and that is an oversight which we can use. We can analyze that data to understand where our time is going. So, for example, very tangibly, if you are receiving data requests from the business, the thing which is most useful is to measure those, record those in this tabularize each request, who it's from, what's the complexity, how long did it take, what were the themes of the request, etc. And then obviously who's acting on that. And then suddenly you've got a productivity report. You can actually focus on implementing initiatives to remove ad hoc requests. You can focus on training people to use data differently rather than just trying to work out, just treating everyone the same. And I think you can also justify where you're pinched for productivity time. You can justify to the business, I need a new analyst because I can prove that the time we're spending on this high impact work is not enough, etc., etc. So measuring yourself gives you control over the impact you're having. It lets you understand where time is being spent, maybe it could be improved, both in terms of the business you're serving and also where you can make operational improvements yourself internally.
You know what I like about this discussion? This is kind of the second time you talked about measuring. I like the fact that you mentioned that Count.co, the data canvas, has telemetry where you can see what's working and not working. I do want to make sure I want to mention that what's working and not working on your dashboard. 98% of other tools don't have that, right? You just kind of put it out there and you can put your dashboard together or your report.
I don't look at other dashboard. I don't look at other tools very often because they're all the same.
I do, but but I think that having that level of insight to know where people are focused on helps. It's almost like A/B testing a web page, right? The way that web pages work, and this on landing pages, is good growth hackers, marketers, etc. They focus on looking at where people click, and if they have an area that's not performing, they keep adjusting it until they get the clicks that they want. And I love the fact that you're kind of driving home, hey, we have to treat our reports, dashboards, whatever visualizations, canvases this way. And then now you're talking about measuring again, which is measuring yourself. And I think a lot of times, so in the world that I came from, an enterprise, there was this concept around BI on BI. I know you've heard that before, right? So you have BI about your own. You have what a lot of enterprise companies that I work with used to do is create BI on their own BI, all the reports, everything. They had like a master dashboard that showed them performance. What I like here is you're saying, hey, let's measure how our analysts are performing. Could you make some recommendations on the exact type of metrics or KPIs that AOF data leaders should be using in order to start measuring themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple as like where the hour's going. Like how much time are you spending on doing ad hoc requests, or how much time are you spending doing investigative analysis? Like what the ratio might be for your business and your context might depend on the maturity of the team. But just understanding the percentage spent between modeling, exploratory analysis, investigations and then like just doing ad hoc requests. But
what does that look like on the ground though? In reality, is that installing a tool? Like, do you have a tool that you recommend?
No, it could just be crude timesheets. Like, just get your team to just define where my day is going. Like, how many meetings are they having? Like, you can do a lot of stuff just with diary management to measure this stuff. I see people doing it different ways. Some people just do it based on, I'm going to measure my requests, like just doing that kind of measurement on like data requests, and then their KPI they would care about is like which of these requests really should be self-service, because these requests are just someone doing their day-to-day job, and we need to make sure that day-to-day job can be done without any involvement of us, and which of these requests are actually strategic and actually would require us to prioritize based on business need. And so you taking the requests and doing a percentage of these which are actually not trivial but are more operational requests, and minimizing that is a metric you can really go after as well.
Okay, thank you. This is a masterclass, so making sure that we're giving people practical advice is super awesome. All right, and then last but not least, you had one more differentiation between average data teams and high value data teams. What was the fourth differentiation?
The other one is just the idea of collaboration. Like, that's the other big win, is that it's both an enabler and also an outcome of the way of your working. If you are giving operational clarity, if you are able to get the business to focus on the key priority areas, and then you're investing your resources both by the way because you're measuring yourself, and also because the business has got that clarity and working hard on solving the business's biggest problems, then the only way you can work in that way is to collaborate and become the part of the team at the business team solving the problem and collaborating with them on that. One of the big challenges that, again, not to leg segue to our tool, but like one of the big challenges of the way that data teams work, data tools work, and it makes data teams work this way, is it's very siloed. You have the separation between the production assets that you're building and where the analysts build them. And that environment makes sense if you're doing operational reporting, like just here's the sales number. But it completely breaks the workflow of an analyst trying to lean in and trying to problem solve with the business on difficult areas. So collaboration is also essential to like make sure that you're working in an agile way, your iteration cycle's tight, you're not wasting time. So there's an efficiency part of it, but there's also just understanding part of it. Like, it's a way of making the data world become more visible and tangible to the business so they can understand better questions. And it's the only way to get to a good outcome is if you can actually be creative with the team you're working with. So collaboration is really important, and there's only many ways you can do that. But one of the things I think is upfront to say is that the tools most people have do not make collaboration easy. And
I agree.
And that is a real challenge.
Yeah, I remember, one of the things that I loved about working with Count is one of the things, we use our own tools for everything, right? That was a part of our requirement. And being someone that loves tools like Figma, and tools like Notion, where you kind of get in and you can just get in, collaborate. It shows you the little emoji on the top, who's in the document. One of the things I love, and I describe usually Count's product as like, is it the Figma for reporting to some extent, right? I feel like it's a tool that you can get in there and you can see everything in real time. And it's not just a way for you to get your ideas on the screen, but you can actually measure as well. So let's talk quickly a bit about data canvases, because I'm pretty sure AOF does 98%. First of all, AOF, in the comments, do you know what a data canvas is? First of all, let's just ask them, like, how many of you know what a data canvas is? I guarantee you there's
I hope more than no one. No, sure. So so this is the journey to the canvas has not been clean. Like I used to run data projects in my previous jobs, and I was using this running projects, running tools, and finding that challenging and looking for a different solution. And we started off looking at like notebook interfaces, so things like a Jupyter notebook, but hosted in a collaborative environment. And we found that wasn't really fixing these problems. They weren't actually driving any more operational clarity. They were just adding to the pile of insight that people had to wade through, and they were not enabling an analyst and a business user to actually work through problems together. So the canvas, if you can imagine it, the canvas is effectively if you've used Miro or you've used Lucidchart or Figma for creative design or for workshops, it's a similar concept. It's infinite environment, two-dimensional space where you can work and collaborate in real time. But in this space, you are able to bring both business context and quantitative information like screenshots, post-it notes, text boxes, web links, and you can bring in data assets, be that a chart, be that a series of charts to the dashboard, which is like located in the canvas itself, or queries and visualizations as you explore data. And this environment has a huge enabler, both as a collaboration, giving you transparency of your workflow as you think through problems, but it also gives you the flexibility to do the operational oversight. It allows you to present numbers not just as a grid of charts in an operational dashboard. It lets you present them as a hierarchy of charts, lets you represent a business process with all the different stages and forks that it might have, present that tangibly in the canvas with live data showing each metric. So we found that, and we're very lucky that a lot of high impact data teams have found us and gone, this is the tool we need to enable more operational clarity, to enable a place where we can have the flexibility to problem solve and think through things with different parts of the team, and do that in a way which is naturally collaborative. And that's been really a real joy. So a lot of what we've learned that we've been talking through here hasn't come from us necessarily having foresight. It's come from us working with our customers and seeing all the amazing things they managed to achieve with it. And so a lot of what I've been saying with these kind of ideas, a lot of them make sense, but actually seeing people build that out and really drive a change of behavior with how they work with the business and work with each other has been really great.
No, I'm gonna do something that I normally don't do, Ollie. I was just on the website taking a look at some of the examples that Count has, and I remember there was a story about a metric tree. I don't remember the customer, but I remember working there. And normally I don't show tools, but I think it's super important, because as someone that created so many templates for the industry and has worked, thoroughly with everything from SAP Cloud Analytics to Power BI to Tableau, a little bit of a data tool junkie. One of the things I loved about the canvases, let me see if I can actually do this here. This is me now trying to figure out.
You're going to share your screen. Are you sure you're technically capable for this?
I hope so. I typically
don't got the credentials.
I hope so, guys. I hope this doesn't go sour on me here. This is me trying to figure out how to share my screen. Okay, give me a second here. And I particularly, all right, we're going to try this again. This is so embarrassing. All right. So, and this was not planned, like I said, but I normally don't go into tools. But one of the things that I remember in this is that there was this metric tree customer. And so this is actually a data canvas, right? Is this the metric tree? Could you tell a story about this? Because I remember.
If you could just press the minus button there, Miko, just zoom out slightly. We can show the whole overview of the canvas. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. So
this story was so fascinating to me, because I invented the KPI blueprint, downloaded over 10,000 times. And the metric tree was
So as you can see, the right-hand side of this is what we call the metric tree. It's a hierarchical chart showing on the right. This is a hierarchical plot showing you a kind of core metric. In this case, it's profit. And then you've got what does profit break down into? Revenue, COGS. What does revenue break down into? Costs, average.
So good.
That says actually average sales amount. And you're breaking this, you're giving operational clarity, you're breaking down your business into levels of detail, showing what's driving things, laying things out in order of priority. And this is the content of a metric tree. If you zoom out a bit more, Miko, you can see the left-hand side. The key driver of this example, and this is that when our customers build metric trees, it's not just the end result of this hierarchy, which gives clarity. It's the ability to build this together with the business. So, for example,
look the code.
Exactly.
Right
well,
here.
You can hide the code, but the key is the numbers, right? You're showing the methodology with these arrows to show that how you've got to that methodology. So to give you an example, there's a customer of ours who is a streaming company, and they were working with their product team, and their product team was getting concerned. They didn't understand what was going with customer retention. And so the head of data there said, look, one we need to make sure we understand is what is the drivers of retention. Let's build a metric tree and break this down. So they actually then, in the same canvas, did a workshop with the product team where they went through what are the drivers of this, the hierarchy of metrics. The analyst team then built the logic that drives that, make sure the definitions of these metrics were clear to the business, and they iterated towards a final metric tree, which they now use as part of their weekly reporting cycle, and it goes to the exec board. And
I absolutely love it.
The power of the process of getting there, and the fact that then the board can consume these numbers regularly with real clarity, it's both the end result, but also the way you get there, which matters. And that's how this idea of problem solving, operational clarity, and collaboration really fit together really well. And the power of this is there's a virtuous cycle, right? So the virtuous cycle is, as you get more operational clarity, suddenly the business goes, well, why is that metric low? And then you can prioritize your analytical resource into problem solving on the thing which is the most important realization of the business at that point in time. So you get that, and that then leads to a virtuous cycle of more operational clarity. And that's what's really great about how we see people engaging using the canvas, is it's about clarity and then problem solving, and that virtuous cycle that you need to drive value.
You know what I love in particular as well, Ollie? One of the things that consumes data meetings when you're dealing with users is anytime you put a chart on the screen or some type of data, they always ask you what composes that, like what made up that number, right? How do you come to that number? And then what ends up happening is the meeting becomes oh, let me go pull this up. And you dig into the data source and you're digging through, and you have to go through this, or you run out of time and Ollie, let me get back to you. And then you start this vicious either Slack thread or Teams thread or email. I mean, it's just a vicious cycle of here's how I'm justifying my numbers. And what I love about the canvas is that when the question is asked, right? And one of the things that we didn't show is you can kind of hide some of the details. You mentioned that, but you can hide it. But if Ollie comes in and he says, hey, that number looks great. How did we get there though? I don't understand why you have 50%. And in my gut, I felt it was 80%. Right there, you can unhide if you want to and say, all right, let's dig through these numbers on the spot. And by the way, you have full access. You don't need me to do this, right? If you want to come back in and take a look at this, I'll give you access to the canvas and you can dig through the numbers. So I love when you talk about operational clarity. I personally think, and again, this is not to tout a tool, I think it's the way of working is the focus. Totally. I personally love the fact that the operational clarity and speed that you get from having everybody on the same page is a game changer. And to me, when a user leaves those type of meetings, they feel like, hey, I got my questions answered. We solved the problems. This was a high value meeting.
Agreed. And to be clear, we are just fortunate we have some amazing customers who are showing this. I mean, I want to be clear that this is a way of working that we're building towards, which we believe in, and we believe that's how you deliver high impact. So we're taking the tenets that we're seeing, we're working with our customers to build this out more and more. And I think these tenets of operational clarity, problem solving, collaboration are just as a framework we need to lean into, because the old way of working, we're just throwing out assets, was originally like 15 years ago when I first started my data career. Just getting numbers into the hands of data people was enough, but that's no longer the case. It's now signal from noise.
It's too much data.
It's a different way of working is now required to deal with that new problem, that new environment we're now in. You get it.
So
thank you.
Well, I worked for Count, and it was the ride of my life. I had a great time. Okay, so I know we have to wrap up here.
We missed you. Yeah,
I miss you guys as well. I saw you guys in a Scotland retreat, and I was like, oh.
Well,
our last retreat was Croatia.
To be clear, I was gonna say, like, that the team, that nothing else proves what Miko brings to the team. It's the fact that we were on one of our retreats last year. We were on a speedboat in Croatia, dumping around islands, jumping into the water. So different vibe. Yeah.
Vibe. No, it was definitely fun. Okay, I know we have to wrap up here because you have a flight to catch. And AOF, before I wrap Ollie up, I really hope that you guys embrace his concept of operational clarity and way of working. While I was excited to show you guys the canvas, the way that Ollie thinks about this as the CEO of Count is something that I absolutely fell in love with. It's one of the reasons I joined Count, because the things that we were discovering were very different. Like he said, we've both been in this industry 10 plus years. We've seen a lot, right? And we've seen the evolution. So I really hope that you guys listen to this particular podcast again and again. Make sure that you reach out to Ollie. Okay, so let's wrap up here. Ollie, so really quickly, I know we have like 2 minutes.
Sure.
Who inspires you?
Well, let's go. Who inspires me? My wife inspires me. because I know how difficult I am difficult to live with. Who else inspires me? You inspire me. I always get a lot of it. I mean, you are. People don't. If you met Mika in person, you'll realize she is just as much a bundle of energy in person as she is online, and she's a real joy to know. I'm blessed to consider you a friend, and yeah, that'll do for now. You put me on the spot.
All right, and then I already knew you were gonna say this book, because even when we worked together, this is one of your favorite books. What is one tool or book you'd recommend to AOF, and quickly why?
So, as a lot of people in data, I have come from a science background, and I really miss that kind of I miss science, miss that kind of pure mathematics, and so I get a lot of kicks out of reading like a lot of Andy Weir books, like The Martian, and his latest book is called The 𝗟𝘂𝘪 Project, and I literally binged that book because it's just a great problem-solving book with science. It's a great story. So that is a book I would love to recommend. The other one, which is more business focused, not fiction, would be The Trusted Advisor. So my background into data has been, like many people have, I used to be a management consultant doing data projects. And
same here.
The Trusted Advisor is definitely considered to be the management consultant's Bible for how to run client relationships. And if you're in data,
100%.
whether you know it or not, you've also got clients. They may be internal, not external. But the way that the book talks about how to elevate yourself to the point where you're that trusted advisor of the exec team, how to be that trusted advisor of a key sponsor, be their eyes and ears. There's so much about that book which you can replicate in the data team as well. So there you go. Those are my two recommendations. One is completely fun, and one is very, very serious and very, very valuable.
All right, and last but not least, thank you for that. Where can AOF find you? Keep in touch.
You could. Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Ollie Hughes. Account.co is our website. Please take a look. Thank you. What a plug. And I occasionally drop into no longer on Twitter. Sadly, I found that a bit difficult. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn and on account.co. And obviously Mika knows me, so get hold of her.
Yeah, and Count.go has an excellent Slack community as well. If you guys want to join, Ollie is in there to see what's going on with them and their customers. They have a free Slack community. Okay. So I know we have to wrap up here again because you have a flight to catch. AOF, go ahead and put your comments below. Ollie will circle back and be happy to answer them for you guys, your questions. I know this was fast and furious, but I absolutely hope that you guys gain value from this. Ollie, you know that you're one of my favorite people, not because we have the same birthday, but
slightly because we have the same birthday.
Slightly because you have the same birthday, right? But you are amazing. And AOF, you guys know what I say. You guys are the results of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And you spent, 30-40 minutes now with me and Ollie. Take action. If you have questions, Ollie, can AOF reach out to you? Yes, they can.
Yes, please do.
Right? Especially my data leaders, data teams, data analysts trying to do something different, tired of just putting out charts. Definitely reach out to Ollie. Super amazing company and team, and I look forward to seeing what's next. All right. Okay, AOF, you guys absolutely rock. Ollie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with us.
Love you, Mika. Speak soon.
All right.
Bye.
All right.